Hello, Gunner James 105. So this Martini Henry is the Mark IV version. And so what I've come to learn when I was wanting to do this video is that I was wanting to give you as much information as I could. So I'll be laying it on the table, give you some close-ups, a little more information. Try not to bore you, but there's some key things, I guess, that I'm going to try and, I'm not going to get into too crazy details. So this particular one is what makes it weird and strange and everything else is it's the attempt to do a conversion on a conversion. So when rifles were changed and then changed back as far as caliber. So this one's got some things that turn out to be not so simple. So when I try to explain things, or learn things, that was part of my difficulty, because as it turns out, if you have a Mark IV, you can have a A-type, B-type, or C-type. Just wanted to let you know, as far as the stock, that'd be a walnut stock, and this socket type bayonet is the 1876 pattern. I don't know the pattern that came before this or after, but it does have a lug on the side, and I think that was part of the upgrade to accept the other type of bayonet after this one. So for now, I'll just end it there, and then we'll go on. Like I say, if it were just like a Mark I or a Mark II or a Mark III, it'd be a lot easier, because each one of those series was a particular, the first one was the Martini Henry, and then it was improved a little bit. You wouldn't even notice it from the outside, improved a little bit again. But this one here definitely had a lot of changes to it, so hang tight. So 1871 rolls around, and replacing the Snider rifle is the Mark I Martini Henry. And so that came about in about 1871. And that was in the .577 by 450 inch caliber. That was what they were shooting. So that was the Mark I, and then they made some improvements to the trigger in around 1877, and that was the Mark II. And if you've ever seen the movie Zulu, that's the type of rifle they were using in that movie. They were using the Mark II, and I just happen to have a ex-video store. That place went out of business a long time ago. My VHS copy. One day maybe I'll get this in a DVD. But this is what I watch when I want to watch it. And if you haven't, if you're watching this video, I'm sure you must have seen this movie, or you wouldn't care about this rifle usually. But I think this movie really made this rifle famous more than anything. But yeah, excellent movie. Highly recommended. So we'll carry on with this description here. They went from the Mark III then from Mark II to a Mark III. Just going to give you some quick history here, and then I'll get some close-ups. But I figured to tell you that around 1879 they went to this Mark III, and so it was an improvement on the Mark II, and they came up with they felt it was better to have a wider breech block. And I do not know what this means. It's a double lump barrel, whatever that means. They did that, and then finally they decided that they needed to make some changes and come up with this Mark IV. Now what was happening was they had come up with this, it was a 402 caliber. And that started happening around 1884 to 1887. This particular rifle laying on the table is dated 1886, so it would have been changed. The caliber would have been changed to this 402 caliber. And so then what was happening is that there was this Lee Metford that was coming along, and it was in 303. So now we've got three calibers. So they then decided that they were going to change over in, like after this 87, they were going to, starting in 87, I think it was September 15th or something, they decided that they were going to change back to, and they went from 87 to 89, they're going to change back to this original caliber, the .577. then they'd only have the 303 and that. So they went and they took these rifles and they either bored them out, re-rifled them or whatever, or they changed the barrel completely, and then we ended up with this Mark IV. So, and then it was around the 1890s they started converting all of these to a lot of these to the 303. So this one retains its .577 caliber. So, and then when it did become a 303, it became known then as a Martini Enfield. So, after that then we had the Lee Metford, and it started out as a black powder. I mean, this was a black powder. Lee Metford also started out as a black powder, and then it went to cordite. So that's that bit of history. And so I have one thing to say on this regarding a license to own it. This is classed as an antique. So in Canada, anyone can buy this. You don't need a license to buy it. You need a license to own this, but you can buy this without a license. Antique. And if you're into this type of rifle, you'll soon discover that unless you're reloading, these are very, very expensive and difficult to find. You're not really going to get this type. This is the earliest type. This is the type that came out in when the rifle came out in 1871. This is this they call a rimmed brass foil black powder cartridge. So it doesn't really have any identifying markings on there, and it looks to be a steel base with brass. And they've got this coiled cartridge. Now that went from about 71 to 85, as in 1871 to 1885, and then they went to a more of a drawn brass, like the type of casing we're all familiar with in modern day ammunition. So they went to that. But that actually, when I got looking at it, this .577 is the diameter, and that was a holdover basically from the Snyder, which was a 577. And so I went to go look in the old bullet collection, which we acquired, cartridge collection I should say, and I thought, well, what are the chances? And there it was, laying right up top, will you focus? So this is a 577 or 57 Snyder cartridge. So a lot shorter. If you were to put them side by side, you just get that like so. So you can see that it's basically been elongated. Bullet's a bit lighter weight. The base is exactly the same, the diameter. So that's where it started, and this is where it evolved to, and then finally the a proper brass cartridge. What was happening, this is part of the Mark IV thing, is that the lever was changed to help with the extraction. These were causing problems with the black powder and this type of case. Things were getting jammed up. So then they decided they were gonna put on a long lever. So this is what this one, it's a number 4 with a short lever. So it's an oddity. Something either was changed and then changed back. I have no idea. This thing is sold. But what they did was they took this and then they extended it to about here. So they plugged that hole and they took that brass piece and moved it here and put on a longer lever. So now we had that much more leverage with our lever. And so you could pop those out of there a lot better, or a lot easier, especially when they went to that newer style case. So then there's the thing with the with these that you had your A, B, and C designations. So you could look at a number 4 or a Mark IV and say, well, that's an early one, kind of middle of the road or near the end. And this one here looks more like a Type A, mostly because it's got what they call a barleycorn front sight. So it doesn't have the what would normally be a ramped. So the newer ones had kind of a ramp coming up. which meant, as you noticed earlier, I had that bayonet on there, that socket bayonet. And so the other types, they couldn't accept that type of bayonet, but they did, and this one has it. They put on this bayonet lug. So the bayonet lug was meant to accept, now I don't know the pattern of bayonet, I can't remember, I should have looked that up, but yeah, so it did go through that band being replaced and having that to accept that other style bayonet. Or it may be a holdover from the previous socket type. They had one that was like more of a blade type, and it actually had a saw blade. So this one here, it's walnut stock. It's got a little bit of a piece I got to glue. And there's also this side here. It looks like this could have been used as a repair rifle or a parts rifle, and a piece of the stock's been removed from here. So what to do about that, if anything, I'm not sure. And then just moving in a little closer, I can show you the markings. So we've got that crown with the VR, or Victoria Regina Enfield, is where this was built, 1886. It's not, the markings are not really great or easy to see, but you can see maybe the Roman numeral 4. So also it has the, when you cock it, this is the indicator that tells you this rifle is cocked. And of course you're going to, when you open that up, you'll load your single round in, and then close it, and then ready to fire, and that moves back. So what else was I going to tell you? Yeah, so and basically, I mean, what we're talking here is we're going from the from these different cartridges. I don't have that other style, the newer style. Maybe I'll find one someday. It's not like I'm thinking of shooting this rifle. It's more of something to hang on the wall, something for the collection. But there's your 303. This one happens to be a World War II Spitzer bullet. This would be the Mark 7 or whatever. So, but yeah, you can see there's quite a big difference in the size of bullet and case and everything else. And of course, this one probably more effective, I suppose. So to put the bayonet on, let me just check my notes here, and just maybe before I go any further here, just make sure I haven't left anything out, because I think that's probably yeah. So this here, just the final thing. Of course, I had to get that. I think it came from China or something, but once I had this, I had to have that or something like that. It just goes with the collection. This thing's missing its cleaning rod, and it's missing the swivel here, because this is where your other swivel would go, your sling, and of course it's missing the sling, but your sling would go from here on a swivel up to the front, as opposed to at the back of the stock. And I know they had, this is kind of weird because there's a plug here, as if there was something put there one time for a sling swivel. But they had also, you know, as they did in later years, they had where the stock would be marked either S or L for short or long buttstock. And if it didn't have anything on it, then it was normal, or N. We'd normally see that later on the Enfields, N for normal. So we have that. And I was going to show you how to attach that bayonet, because it was, this one here was made up of two. There's another one in the collection that was really rusty and kind of rough shape. This one, it was good, but it was missing this. So I got it cleaned up as best I could, and I'll probably work on it a little more. But I didn't, you know, I actually had to look this up. So you go like so, like so, like so. It's like a, and this here, this is part of the deal, is I've got to be able to rotate that. So now we've locked that bayonet into place. So that moves there, that comes there, over there, and off there, on, and pivot. So pretty cool. And so that should pretty much sum up. I guess I should give you maybe some close-ups here. This is the sight that is adjustable. So we're going to move this forward or back. I haven't cleaned this yet, but we've got our V-notch here, and we can move this up or down. It's a bit stiff because I haven't cleaned anything on this yet. And then we've got our yards marked out. And I think, yeah, so other than various markings in your broad arrow War Department or WD markings, etc. on this, it's, if we can show that or not. I'm hoping it's focusing for you, but there is the Martini Mark IV in the collection. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.